He served as Oklahoma's Attorney General for 16 years and now wants to be the state's next governor. Drew Edmondson is a Democratic candidate, the latest candidate to join us live here this morning on the 9 a.m. show on KOCO 5 News. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. Great to be here.
Okay, so I read that you were done with politics after 2010 when you tried for your party's nomination in the gubernatorial race then. You missed it by a little bit. And now here we are sitting here in 2017 and you're running again. So what changed?
Well, it was true when I said it. I had no intention of ever running for anything again. The problem is I kept watching the morning news and reading the morning paper, and what was happening in our state was simply unacceptable. I had hoped somebody would emerge who could fix the problem, had the answers, but I didn't see that person, and so last May I announced my candidacy for governor.
Now, when you announced this line in your speech caught a lot of attention. Oklahoma isn't broken, we're just broke. That's what you said. What do you mean by that?
Well, we've been running billion-dollar deficits 2 years in a row, and it looks like next year we'll start off at least $500 million in the hole. And it's not because of economic catastrophe or natural disaster. These are deliberate decisions that have been made to cut our revenues, to cut our budget, to try to reach prosperity by slashing government. And it hasn't worked. It's not going to work. And we've got to restore our funding for education, our funding for health, our funding to reduce prison population. If we don't do that, we're not going to grow as a state.
So what is our way out of the woods? In your mind, how do we get from going from this billion-dollar deficit to somewhere where we could be back in the black?
Well, number one, everybody's got to pay their fair share, and I would start by restoring the 7% gross production tax. You know, it was passed as a lower rate as an incentive for horizontal drilling and hydraulic fracturing. It worked, and that is now the state of the art. That's the way they drill. So the incentive is no longer necessary. Let's bring it back to where it was. Most oil companies pay at the 7%, but the big ones don't, and we need fair is fair. We need to put it back.
So right now, the legislature has been trying to get it maybe to 4% in that range, and they can't even seem to do that.
No, and my commitment is if the legislature won't move on it, I will see that a petition is circulated. We'll get it on the ballot and give the people a chance to vote on the restoring the 7%.
So you want to let the people, voters, decide through a ballot issue what the tax should be for oil and gas companies?
Yes, sir. And I
do you want to do that for other services too, or just oil and gas?
Maybe. We'll see. My first preference is to work with the legislature to get things done.
Well, now, isn't that the purview of the legislature, though? The reason they exist in part is to pass a budget every year and fund the state and decide, you know, fiscal decisions?
They certainly should, and that hadn't worked. You know, the last 2 years we've had billion-dollar deficits, and this year we were struggling with the same thing. They have not restored the revenues that they've reduced, and that's what's gotten us into the hole.
But do you worry about legislating through ballot initiatives and the rabbit hole that could create if we go down that road?
Well, it's in the Constitution, and it worked very well, I thought, last November, November of 16, when I thought the voters made very educated, very good decisions on a good number of ballot issues. And if necessary, we'll give them the opportunity to do that on revenue issues.
Income taxes, I've read that you're asking people maybe to restore the cuts and increase income taxes?
I think the people ought to have an opportunity to look at that issue and make a decision. If they decide to keep them right where they are, then they'll have to live with it. We will have to live with it. But they may decide that it was a failed experiment to reduce it, and if we want to properly support our schools, we may need to put them back.
And that's another one you're thinking about with those ballot initiatives again?
I think that potential is there.
So asking in people a sense to raise their own taxes.
Exactly. But again, Steve, my first priority is to work with the legislature. And I'm hoping, particularly after the 2018 elections, there will be a number of members who are ready to make changes to try to improve services to the people of the state of Oklahoma. If I'm disappointed in that hope, then we'll go to the people.
Now, one of the things we see from governors oftentimes is they are the chief advocate for the state, especially with large corporations trying to get the companies like an Amazon, like a Google, to come here to the state. What is the pitch that you give for Oklahoma, you know, in meeting with those companies? How do you sell us?
Well, what I want to be able to do is say we're making progress. We are moving the needle up from the basement in education, in health, in mental health. We're reducing prison population instead of increasing it. I would hope to have a narrative that I can take to CEOs saying, exciting things are happening in Oklahoma. We're out of the cellar. We're improving in all of these areas. Come and grow with us. And I think that's a message that will resonate.
Is Oklahoma a tough sell right now?
I think it's a terribly tough sell. CEOs look at us and say, well, you're a poor state. Well, we're not a poor state. We're a poorly run state. We're a poorly led state. We can certainly do better.
All right, I know a lot of people, especially with special session going on, there's so many questions they have for you and the other candidates right now. We'll get to some of those viewer questions from Facebook right after the break. Right now to Shelby, though, with the weather. Shelby?
It's 9:20 now and bright sunny skies as you do step outside.